Somewhere in time, this may have been a survival skill, right?
Thanks for listening to Guidance in Recovery. I'm Keegan Reed, and every week I speak with guests to honestly explore recovery, sobriety, the struggles that come with it, and find things that help us in our recovery journeys. Today, we're speaking to Jessica Setnick. She is a registered dietitian, and she has helped redefine what it means to treat eating disorders and rather how we look at them in the first place. Stick around and learn some deep insights into what actually could be causing someone to not eat properly and what we can do about it. Jessica, first up, what myth are you wanting to bust today?
Oh my gosh, the idea that eating disorders have a look. Just the same as the idea that addictions have a look, that an addict has a look, right?
Okay.
I'm here to bust that anorexia has a look or bulimia has a look. I believe that everyone who eats can have an eating problem, and I will die on that hill.
Well, I think that's a great hill to die on of sorts, because
I'm not looking to die, but if I had to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
turn a phrase.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing, though, whenever we think of addictions or disorders, there's this stereotype that kind of goes along with it. And a lot of us don't fit into that. And whenever we don't fit that stereotype, it's like, is there really something wrong with me? I'm not like that. So I'm like, there's something else wrong or something,
Yes. There's even a fantastic book in the field called Sick Enough. And it's all about, if you don't think you're sick enough to have an eating disorder.
Huh. Okay.
Because it was such a pervasive myth in our field.
Yeah. Okay. So whenever we look at this eating order and how you've come about creating this whole new boot camp of sorts, could you give us a little bit of your backstory? Like, what got you into figuring this out for yourself and others?
Sure. So you mentioned I have an anthropology background. You said I'm an anthropologist of the human soul, which I was like, wow, no one has ever said that before, but it totally resonated. I started out in college having no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I just had always thought, oh, I'm supposed to go to college, so here I am. And so I just started taking the classes. They're sort of required classes in different fields. And all the required classes I ended up taking were in anthropology. And if anyone listening doesn't know what anthropology is, don't stress, because I didn't know what anthropology was until I started realizing how much I liked it. It's just a study of human development. It's a study of people. Archaeology is one facet of anthropology. That's the things humans leave behind. There's also linguistics, which is the way humans develop language and use language. So it was really all about how humans develop culture, how humans develop physically, all of these different facets. And I loved it so much. It was so interesting to me. And then I took nutrition as an elective because my friend told me it was an easy A. Shout out to Casey McLaughlin. She was wrong. It was not an easy A. And I fell in love with it. It was so good. I just love the idea of what happens when food goes inside your body. The idea that this whole process is happening all day, every day for us humans, and we don't have to control it or even know about it or be aware of it. It's so weird, right? And so these two things kind of came together for me. And it was like the nutrition felt like micro anthropology. Like if anthropology is about how the human species developed or how different cultures developed, nutrition was about how your own internal experience developed, why you feel the way you feel about eating, what you even think of as food versus not food. Like, is a grasshopper food? That's the example I always give, because some people would say yes, some people would say no, right? We all have all this, for lack of a better word, I'll just say baggage related to eating that we're not even aware of. The same way we're not aware of what's going on in our digestive system, we're also not aware of what's going on in our brain related to food. And so this just fascinated me. At first, I thought I wanted to be a sports dietitian, but what happened is when I was in school getting my degree in sports nutrition, so this is my second degree, I realized that even though I think all that stuff I said about how you think about food, how you feel about food, how you feel before you eat, after you eat, the choices you make, how social constructs affect your eating, all of that I thought belongs in all areas of nutrition. But when I was going through school, this was in 1994, I'm older than I look. So back then, the only part of nutrition where you were really allowed to talk about this stuff was in eating disorders. So
Oh,
I gravitated toward the eating disorder field, not realizing I had my own eating disorder. I
huh.
gravitated toward that area because that's where the dietitian was allowed to talk about the psychology of eating and really delve into it with patients. And so
Huh.
that's the part I loved. So that's how well, that's not how I got here to this day, but that's sort of
Uh-huh.
my origin story as an eating disorder specialist dietitian.
Okay. Well, thank you for that background. And I mean, you have brought up some really good points because I mean, whenever I think about what is food and what isn't food, it's like basically food nowadays comes in a package. And it's kind of weird, right? But I also know that it doesn't necessarily have to look like that. And the grasshopper example is great because like if you what is that world market I think you can go to and like they have chocolate covered grasshoppers and other things like that, but I haven't ate those because to me, bugs are not food. But some people like around the world, they're more of a delicacy almost, right?
Yeah,
And
maybe.
so, whenever I think of eating disorders, the first thing that comes to my head is calories. You know, it's like, how many calories am I ingesting? Is it too much? Is that the proper standard? And so, my question, real quick, is what do calories actually have to do with the way that we interact with food?
That is not where I thought you were going with that question. Okay. Calories is like inches. Calories is a
Uh-huh.
way of measuring.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say, I'm, well, I was just told I'm shrunk now to 5'1". So I'm 61 inches tall. So an
Okay.
inch is, it doesn't exist. It's just a way of measuring.
Okay.
So if I held up an apple and said, this provides 80 calories, you can't find them if you looked under a microscope. It's just a way of measuring how much energy your body would make after you ate that apple. But that
Mm.
is a gross overgeneralization of how calories work. That's sort of the definition of calories,
Uh-huh.
is how much energy your body can make when you eat it. But everyone's body is so different and every apple is so different that there is no standard, but that is what a calorie is. It's a unit of measurement, just like an inch. It's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot see it. It's a way of measuring.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, in a sense, because I mean, you also just opened up another question that I was about to say or think of, because if calories, from my scientific understanding, it's like how much energy it takes to change 1 cc of water up 1 degree of
Oh, you did
Celsius.
some research.
No.
Yeah, that's right. Technically, it's actually, yes, it's, yes, yes. You're describing a kilocalorie. We
Okay.
abbreviate that KCAL.
Uh-huh.
And usually only dietitians write it that way. Usually
Mm-hmm.
nobody thinks of it that way. So I explained to you sort of what humans who are not
Uh-huh.
dietitians would say. But yes, if you were a dietitian, you could say, yes, a kilocalorie is the amount of heat that it would take to raise 1 milliliter of water 1 degree.
Okay.
But
And
nobody cares about that. That's like saying, what is an inch? An inch is, I don't know, how did an inch originate? I really don't know. Was it King Henry's like distance between his thumb and his first knuckle or something? You know, nobody cares about that. We've left that behind.
uh-huh.
But yes, you are correct in that it is a
Mm-hmm.
measure of heat. Yes.
Okay, so but whenever you said that it's kind of like not everyone's body is the same, not every apple is the same, does that really imply that the same food would not interact with each person the same way because their body is going to create a different amount of energy with whichever item they choose to eat, right?
Yes, and we haven't even discussed that some people eat all the way up to the core. Some people eat the whole core. Some people leave over only the stem, right? Some people peel the apple before they eat it. Like there's
Uh-huh.
so many factors that yes, it's going to be different for every single person, not just in what their body does when they eat the apple, but how the apple even got to them, what they do to the apple once they have it. Did they already preheat it in the oven and make a baked apple with some cinnamon and stuff, right? It's like there's so many factors, and we humans just really want things to have a definite answer. Believe
Hmm.
me, I am this person I am describing. We want there to be one answer, and that is not how it works in nutrition.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, whenever we think about eating disorders, though, you kind of said like some people eat the whole apple, some people will peel the apple. And so the first thing that I think of eating disorders is either eating way too much, not eating at all, or throwing it back up after eating. Those are the three that I think of. Is that right to say that those are the disorders, or?
Oh my goodness. You are ahead of your time. You are so smart. Those are not the disorders. Those are symptoms of the disorders.
Oh.
So we don't actually know what the disorder of an eating disorder is. We can't point to the broken body part. It's just like an addiction. You can't say the problem is in my lungs. The problem is I have a broken bone. It is, we don't know, is it hormonal? Is it neurotransmitters? What exactly is it trauma related? And I have developed a whole model based on it's different for every person. And I've broken into 4 categories, which I'm happy to share with you. But to me, the eating disorder is a question mark. In other words, I prefer not to use the term eating disorders actually, because eating disorders, remember anthropology, how we use language, very specific. Eating disorders are a very specific category of diagnoses that have been defined by humans very imperfectly. Very imperfectly is actually a kind way of saying it. It's way worse than very imperfectly. And so using eating disorders is what I feel like the way we use that terminology, we think like what you said. It's either someone emaciated who's not eating enough, someone overweight who's eating too much, someone who eats and then uses compensatory behaviors to get rid of their food. Those are all behaviors, but guess what? The same person can do all of those behaviors. So how can you put someone in a box based on the behavior? So the terminology I have tried to send out into the universe, and seems to be taken off a little bit in my field, is dysfunctional eating behaviors or disruptive eating behaviors or problem eating behaviors, because that's what we see. We don't see the eating disorder. We don't know if it is a brain chemical problem and therefore could be fixed by SSRIs. We don't know if it's a hormone problem and therefore could be fixed by estrogen. If it's a trauma problem and therefore it could be fixed by EMDR. We have to figure that out for each person, but not based on the behavior that they're doing, based on what caused the behavior that they're doing. And so now I have framed for you my model, my gift to the field, which is called the origins of dysfunctional eating behavior. And there are 4 categories. There's the biologically based dysfunctional eating behaviors, addiction-based dysfunctional eating behaviors, stress and trauma-based dysfunctional eating behaviors, and then environmental and learned behaviors. And I'm happy to talk more about that if you want me to, but as the shorter answer to your question, the behaviors are the symptom. That's what you see. The dysfunction is something actually internal. We don't know what it is. And so it would be wrong to name the disorders after the behavior, and yet that's what our medical community does. If you don't eat enough to sustain life, you have anorexia nervosa. And what happens is people get misdiagnosed all the time. So the person who is living in a bigger body and only eats 300 calories a day is told to eat less. And that doesn't make any sense, because no one asked what is behind this. So that's where I come from, is let's look at each person as an individual, figure out how they got here, and then maybe we can unwind it somewhat. And that's the model that I created.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, you totally just blew my brain with that, because you said that the behavior is kind of like what we're treating, or what we're looking at. And that was the same thing that came to mind whenever it's like, well, whenever I was dealing with my alcoholism, that was just a symptom of what was going on the inside. So that's super interesting. And I mean, how did you start to figure out that was more the case? Was it because you were like, humans are humans and they don't necessarily know what is going on inside?
That's part of it. Part of it was sitting across from people one at a time and hearing their origin story and realizing it's different for every single person, but there are some trends. And the thing that sort of made me jump into this origins model that I continue to refine is that in 2013, so I don't know how familiar your listeners might be with the DSM. It stands for Diagnostic Manual of Statistical and Mental Disorders. And it's basically the diagnoses that psychologists use to name the experiences that people are going through. So alcohol use disorder. No one except a psychologist is going to use the word alcohol use disorder, the phrase.
Yep.
But those are the things that it defines. And so prior to 2013, the only two eating disorders that were defined were anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. In 2013, a new version of diagnoses came out and added a few things, and then also added a severity criteria. And so if you and I were going to say, what would make something like anorexia severe? Like, what would we want the severity criteria to be? And this, I actually went and gave a presentation and was just writing on the board, and everyone just shouted it out. It was like, if you have heart complications, if you're throwing up blood, if you have osteoporosis, the longer you've had it, the younger you are when it starts. Like, these are all things that might be severity. If you're homeless and have no support, right? These are all things that might sort of impact the severity of your anorexia. Well, guess what the DSM chose for the severity criteria? Your BMI.
Oh, I was about to say weight. So close.
Worse than weight. BMI.
Yeah. Okay.
Bullshit, meaningless information. That is my definition of the acronym. So, and for bulimia nervosa, I would say many of the same things I would think would be the severity criteria, but the APA picked how many times per week on average you use a compensatory behavior. Now, let me tell you, I've met a lot of people with bulimia, and I've been one. Not one of those people could tell you how many times a week on average for the past 3 months they have thrown up.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody counts?
No. Yeah. That'd be like asking an alcoholic, how many drinks do you have a day? It's like, how long have I been awake?
Until I black out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so I was so infuriated by how distant this official Bible of mental disorders was from how people actually exist in life, and how helping professionals, treaters, actually address people or talk to people, work with people, that I gave a whole presentation on it. And that was that sort of rage of righteous indignation was how I came up with this. What should we be using instead? It was sort of like when someone says, what do you want to eat? And you say, I don't know. And they say, what about Chinese food? And you're like, but I know I don't want that. Right? It's like, I couldn't have told you how I thought we should be doing things until someone did it totally wrong. And then I was like, but that's not the way. And so I then came up with what I thought would be much better. And P.S. there is a P.S. to my superhero story, origin story, or supervillain, depending on your point of view, which is that in 2023, those severity criteria that I was mad about in 2013 that were so bad that nobody in the field actually used them, so it didn't matter because nobody cared. In 2023, they became mandatory.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, people were not able to get insurance coverage because of how many times they threw up a week for the average of 3 months or whatever. It just, they didn't meet criteria anymore. And so I actually put together, within 48 hours, I put together a proposal with 2,000 signatures. I did the whole appropriate thing. And 18 months later, which was this year, I got an email that the APA issued a correction.
Whoa.
Yes. And they changed those severity criteria to, at the discretion of the treating professional, based on how much it's impairing your life and how many medical complications you have. Ooh. So a little grassrootsy advocacy actually paid off this time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, it sounds much more comprehensive and actually understanding of the person and not treating them like a number.
Yes, not trying to stuff them in a box. Oh, you don't eat enough? You go in this box. Oh, you're overweight? You go in this box. And the best example I can give you is a little one-act play about Goldilocks and the three bears. And let's say Goldilocks sees the three bears and they're all coughing. And so she's so sweet. She gives them each a cough drop. And Papa Bear stops coughing and says, wow, I feel so much better. Thank you. And Mama Bear just keeps coughing. No change at all. And Baby Bear takes a cough drop, turns blue, and passes out. And now they have to call an ambulance, 911, whatever, EMTs. Well, why? They were all coughing, right? Well, she did not assess why they were coughing. So Papa Bear's coughing because he has a sore throat. The end. Cough drop solved it. Mama Bear, she has tuberculosis. A cough drop's not going to do jack. And Baby Bear, he's already choking on a chicken wing. So you give him a cough drop, and now you've completely blocked his airway, and he codes, right? If you just look at the outside behavior, you're not eating enough, you're not eating enough, you're not eating enough. You give everybody the same treatment. You don't know which person is not eating enough because they've had a traumatic event and they're in shock. Which person's not eating enough because they grew up in a household where they were shamed every time they ate, right? You don't know what the root problem is. So you're not solving the root problem. You're only either pacifying the symptom for a little while or doing nothing. Or worse, you are causing more harm because you are basically replicating the same thing that caused the problem.
Oh man, I bet some people do not like hearing that last part.
I mean, I think that what is so toxic in any field is the people who think they know it all. So anyone who can't hear, just because we've always done it this way, that must mean it's the best? No. Why can't you say we did the best we could? Maya Angelou, we did the best we could with what we knew, and now we know more, and now we do better. People who can't change, I think, are a problem. And I heard this saying, oh my gosh, it's really weird.
Okay.
The field advances with every death.
Yeah.
When someone told me that, I was like, wait, what? Are you talking about patients dying? This is so morbid. She said, no, it's the people at the top of the food chain. You're nodding. It sounds like you've heard this before. Like in academia, the people at the top, when new stuff comes along, they may not want to accept it. They may not mentor people who have different ideas, etc. And so those new ideas don't come out until someone dies and stops the gatekeeping.
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of goes along the same lines of like government. And I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard that same set of words from a job that I went to. It's like, well, why do we do stuff this way? It's just how we've always done it. Like, but we can do it a little bit better. Or like, what about this? So it's so interesting because I've also heard something similar in regards to like recovery. And whenever I was in rehab, there was someone that said, for some to live, some must die. And I was like, oof, that's really rough. But at first I thought it was total bullshit. But the longer I've been in recovery and all that, the more I come to find out that it's actually very true, because some people don't have a rock bottom. Some people do have a rock bottom. Some people have to witness those around them go through terrible things or suffer the worst, and to have their mind or perspective shifted. You know, and that's how I see that kind of going too, is that some of the people that say, no, it's done this way, they have to die off so that someone else can take their spot and say, no, but let's try stuff a little bit different because we've learned more information.
Well, and what I hear when I hear you say that is, if we have that tragic event where someone dies, what are we learning from it? In other words, we can't control it. We're not saying we hope someone dies so we can learn something. But if someone dies, let's not make it be a waste. Let's advance the field. Let's move forward because of that. And I do feel like I've tried to kind of change the language in our field to a turning point rather than rock bottom. But one of the examples I give of a turning point is if someone you were in treatment with in the past dies, that could be a turning point. It's not for everybody, but it can be. Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you help people figure out their origin story? Because a lot of people would like to think that, oh, I've lived my life, I know why I do everything that I do, right?
No, none of us do. So I'm thinking of a drawing of an iceberg. Like if you picture an iceberg like with a penguin on the top, I used to think the tip of the iceberg was where the penguin is standing. Like that's the tip, right? And then you see this iceberg floating in the water, and I would think, why did the Titanic not just veer around it? Like, I don't get it. Well, what I didn't know is that this whole triangle is the tip. And the iceberg is actually this big continent under the water, and no one can just veer around it. That's how I think of us. What we think we bring to the table, to our therapist, to our dietitian, to our self-help, is this. And there's this whole continent underneath of stuff. And until you start looking into that unconscious stuff, that historical stuff, you don't know. Sometimes you might start chipping away and you're like, I know it's in there. It's just ice and trauma. And then you're like, wait, there's a bicycle in there. You're like, what does this have to do with anything? That's sort of the image I have in my mind of what you're talking about. And so what I do, since I don't see patients anymore, I now teach a workshop called Healing Your Inner Eater. And the goal is not even to delve into your own subconscious on purpose. Like, I'm not sure how you would do that, like hypnosis or something. No, it's to actually look at the lives of the people who raised you and the people who raised them. So even if it might be parents, grandparents, foster parents, it might be siblings, an orphanage. Like, there's so many different ways that people can be raised, right?
Yeah.
We look at those people's life experience and then the life experience of the people that raised them. And that's how we're able to start seeing the things that we are not consciously aware of. So just to give you an example, when we do this exercise in the workshop, we ask people to draw themselves in the middle and then draw the people who were important to them growing up, like your first 6 to 10 years, no more than that. But those people, you can do more if you've more, later, but we start with those early experiences. And then, so write the names of the people who were important to you, and then write a few things that you know about their life, not even necessarily about their eating, about their life. And amazing things, and we ask people to discuss, and amazing things come up. And here's just one example. Recently, this is a therapist now, so I was doing this for a group of professionals. And she said one of the things she realized during this exercise is her parents grew up impoverished. They probably didn't have enough food. They definitely didn't have enough food to buy whatever they wanted. And then her dad, I believe, became some kind, well, let's just say financially well off. I don't even need to say what the profession was. And this was in the 80s. And so depending on how old you are, you may or may not remember that the height of coolness at school lunch in the 80s was Lunchables. Right? The little individual, right? The little bento box of, crackers and round shaped meat and cheese. Yeah. So she said that every single day she took a Lunchable to lunch and that she did not learn to boil an egg, steam broccoli, cook a chicken breast until she was in college and one of her roommates taught her. She was never taught how to actually make food because her parents were so sort of overjoyed that they had reached this financial status where they could give her packaged processed food for lunch every day. And so that's the kind of thing we're talking about. The messages you received about food and eating before you even knew you were getting messages about food and eating. That's what's in the iceberg.
Ooh, okay. And looking at the people that were around us in those early years and stuff, I love that because, I mean, in looking at the way the people who raised them as well, because I have a life example that I went through recently where I had said something to the wife and I had apologized and stuff, and she was like, "Why are you doing this?" kind of thing. And it's because I had that victim mindset. And so she brought it up, and I was at first I was a little bit peeved. I was like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm not having this victim mindset." And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, "Wait." So my mother kind of has that victim mindset. And then I was like, "But why does my mother have that?" Because my grandmother, she was alienated from her siblings, and she was the black sheep of sorts. And so it just got transferred to my mother and then to me, and I didn't even realize I was doing some of the stuff. And so it's the intergenerational trauma of sorts.
Yes, exactly. Like we could just end right now. You got
it. But we don't need to end right there because it's like one of the things that I also think of is like if, say, people in the Panhandle or whatever lived through the Dust Bowl, their grandparents were going to have to do something different,
I cannot even believe you said that because that is another example I sometimes share from one of a different Healing Your Inner Eater workshop where when we did this same exercise, someone described growing up in Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl, there was not enough food for everyone, and her family would invite over the minister after church on Sunday. And the minister was allowed to eat. They never wanted to tell the minister they didn't have enough. So the minister just ate. The kids had to sit and watch. And only after the minister and all the adults had eaten, if there was anything left, the kids could eat it. And so this person is recalling this in this small group. And then she realizes when she was a kid, she used to see her when she was a kid, this was the grandmother's family that
Okay.
was a child at this time of the Dust Bowl. When she was a kid, her grandmother, now a grandmother, would cry at family meals. And she would say to her grandpa, why is grandma crying? And he would always say, she's crying happy tears. And she pieced this together and she said, I realize now the idea that she could sit around a table with her grandchildren and there was enough for everyone to eat was so emotional for her. Right? And we are all descended from someone somewhere that either went through a refugee situation, the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, wartime situation, rationing from wartime. There's all just general food insecurity, financial insecurity. We're all descended from people who've had those experiences. And so if you were ever told to clean your plate when you were little because there are children starving and fill in the blank, first of all, we didn't have to look to that country. There were children hungry across the street if we looked. We just didn't know it. But in addition, it was our parents were not trying to screw us up, or our caregivers. They were trying to teach us something with love. Like, you eat what you have now because there might not be something later. But they taught us these scarcity mindsets when we might not have been in a scarcity situation. So we're carrying the same legacy. And one of the main messages I try to send is, can you honor and respect the experiences that your ancestors had without having to continue on the same legacy? Can you, in other words, say thank you for everything you did? And I can personally share that one of my sort of confusions about my iceberg was, why would I feel sad at a happy time? And sometimes I realized it's because I felt guilty that I don't have a life where I had to sacrifice like my grandparents did. And I had to realize, therapy, going to visit where my grandparents came from in Europe, all these different things. I had to get to the place where I realized they made those sacrifices so that I could have different choices. I shouldn't feel guilty. I should feel grateful. I am the embodiment of the reason that they made those choices and they made those sacrifices, and they're celebrating with me. I could cry thinking about it. But the idea that I should be miserable because they were miserable is not the legacy that I want to give to them. It's me being happy to say it was so worthwhile what you went through because look what you were able to create for me. But it's very confusing in our brains. We sometimes think that if we change things, if we do things differently, then we're somehow disinheriting them or something. But doing something differently is simply because you have a different situation, not because you're saying they did it wrong. They needed to do what they did in their situation. It's so complex.
Thank you for watching part 1 with Jessica Setnick about eating disorders and what goes on behind them. Be sure to stick around for part 2 as we dive a little bit deeper, and she provides us with some valuable resources to help you along your recovery journey.